light shining at them from the front of a helicopter several yards from the rapidly approaching shore. The boat docked unceremoniously, and more white arms helped her out, guiding her toward the copter. Its spinning blades threw the cold night air back at her. She allowed them to hoist her up into her seat, and Draven entered right behind her, never allowing more than a foot of distance to spread between him and his new prize. Her mind told her not to let him too close, but her body wouldn't register the threat. She was just too numb, like an emotional switch had been flipped off. Besides, she was surrounded by vampires, creatures who thrived on the blood of humans and killed shifters for sport. The cab of the helicopter was a cramped space, and she had no choice but to be shoulder to shoulder with at least one of them. There was no sense in fearing one of them more than the others, or at least her alarm system didn't think so. The helicopter rocked as it left the ground, but soon stabilized. Myreen hugged her arms against her to keep them from making contact with anyone else.
I know this will be hard for you to believe, but I've been looking forward to this day for a very long time, Myreen,
Draven said. His voice sent a chill up her spine, but she didn't respond in any other way. She picked a diamond shape in the plating on the floor and stared at it with strict determination.
That's all right. You don't have to talk to me. But it's a long flight to Washington.
Draven crossed his arms and leaned back, making himself comfortable. Washington? Where is he taking me? But she didn't say a word. She kept staring at that little metal diamond, clenching her jaw firmly shut the whole way. Hours passed in this fashion. No one said anything else to her, but Draven made idle conversation with his followers. Words were only spoken when Draven talked first. She got the impression that his followers weren't allowed to talk to or around him unless directly invited to. What manner of leader was he? She didn't know how long they'd been flying, only that she was getting very tired, but she didn't dare shut her eyes for longer than a blink.
And there she is,
Draven announced, leaning forward to wave his hand toward the windshield.
Your new home. Heritage Prep.
Myreen broke her gaze away from her diamond to look out the window. A towering black castle rose against the lightening pre-dawn sky. Tall pointed towers stretched upwards, giving Myreen the impression of upside-down vampire fangs taking a bite out of the sky. A fitting dwelling for the vampire leader. The building was dark and beautiful, just like he was, and she was sure it held just as much evil behind its facade. The helicopter landed on the widest part of the roof, surrounded by towers. An attendant outside pulled open the door, and everyone in the cabin squeezed against the walls to allow Draven to exit first. Draven waited outside the door, but Myreen didn't budge, and for a moment no one else did either. After a pause, one of the vampires decided to move toward the door. Draven backhanded him across the face, slamming him into the cabin wall and denting the metal.
Didn't your mother ever teach you that ladies always go first?
Draven said with a deadly calm. Somehow that made him even more terrifying than if he'd yelled it. Myreen jumped at the sudden assault. Draven just hurt his own lackey, and for something as innocent as not wanting to wait for a stubborn girl to get out of a vehicle? The vampire doubled over in obvious pain. She didn't know him, but she didn't want more people getting hurt on her behalf. There'd been enough of that tonight. She hopped to her feet and climbed out of the copter. Draven took her hand and helped her to the rooftop. Though her hands were chilled by the winter air, Draven's were infinitely colder, intensifying their repellence.
I'm sorry about that,
Draven said, keeping hold of her hand and tucking it under his other arm, as if to act as her escort.
Good help is so hard to find. Come, let me show you to your room.
Touching him made her cringe.